Welcome to the Process Podcast with myself, Jeremy Fouts, and Coach Walter Beede. Walter, I tell you, every episode that I do with you, I get really excited, not only for kind of reflecting on how I raised my son, Pearson and Beckett, but maybe just making me realize some of the things I did wrong as a parent. And that's the reason we're doing this podcast. The process is to try to help these parents understand this whole process from the time they're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, going all the way up to the days that they give you a phone call from recruiting to be placed to play the game that they love at the next level. And this podcast has been a lot to me. And I know you and we talk often, the messages that come in over and over and over about how it's making an impact in parents and athletes. And today we're going to be talking about how to raise a student athlete. I'm raising two currently. I just got through raising one that's a senior going on to play college baseball, but you've raised two, so you're a little bit ahead of me. And you've raised some pretty good ones, and you've made an impact on thousands across the country in doing what you do for a living. So today's episode is something that I'm ready to put some attention into, Walter, to see how we can, keep these parents from making the same mistakes maybe that I made as a parent, maybe you did as well. So let's get started here. I want to ask you one of the questions that I had today from a dad. He's got two sons, one 12 and one 13, and one of them is just driven, Walter. He loves the game. He loves the game. And he said, my other son, I don't know if he loves it or not. So as you was raising your athletes and you talk to these parents every day, let's talk about something that's really simple but very important, and that is called fall in love with the game. How would you direct that message to these parents that maybe is a little bit too intense at a young age? Maybe they're looking at that $2 ring on a Saturday or a Sunday thinking that, man, this is everything for me to put on Facebook. How do we kind of bring that back into parents and say, hey, we got to make them fall in love with the game first and foremost?
Yeah. First of all, I always love talking about these topics, specifically with you and answering these questions that parents have. And I had the same situation as a dad. I'm old enough now where my boys are 35 and 33, but I've been fortunate and blessed to be able to have literally watched hundreds and hundreds of young athletes from as young as 7, and then ultimately they go on to play college and beyond, and watch them grow up and watch who they become as adults. But I always try to get parents to understand, in today's world, we have no what I call social awareness of when we're putting young athletes in these athletic environments. It's no longer like just a social activity with their peers where they're competing or learning how to compete. It becomes a stage. And you have phones and you have critics and you have all these people with voices. And it's a much louder world and more social media driven world. And so for parents, especially of the young youth athlete, we must begin to understand that there's a lot of tentative movements by younger athletes because they're afraid to fall or fail because somebody might capture that. And, that might end up in a viral moment where they have to go to school and the classroom is laughing or adults begin to laugh. And so, as you alluded to, young athletes have to have some fun, and we can't take that away. Like, there is no big deal about youth sports up and through the age of 14. Now, I catch a lot of flack on that. And I always say to parents, hey, man, if you can go back and tell me what happened when you were 11 or 12 and how it made an impact in your life, with regard to winning and losing, okay, maybe you got something I don't even know about. But I can tell you that nothing that I ever did as 11, 12, 13-year-old, I know I was skinny, I was scrawny, I was horrible, I was the last pick in every team that I ever played on. I grew up in a neighborhood of older kids, bigger kids, stronger kids. And so I had to find my way based on falling down and getting back up. And when it comes to youth sports, it's about allowing children to play. And when you say that, parents will say, well, that's kind of silly. That's why I signed them up. But are you letting them play? Or are you talking so much about results or statistics or comparisons that your young children are getting consumed with, well, obviously I'm not doing something right because my parent or my grandparent or my peer is asking me about why didn't I do this? Or how did I let that happen? Or how come I'm not as good as Jimmy? And so when you're starting at the younger ages, it should just be a supportive fan. Did you have fun? Things of that nature. And I know we hear that a lot, but we're making the competitive world way too intense at young ages. For instance, I literally got an email from a parent of a 7-year-old. And somebody told the parent that their student athlete had the yips, meaning they couldn't throw a ball across the diamond because they were afraid. And I said, well, why is that? Well, they showed me the video. And where the young athlete picked up the ball and threw it to first base, everybody's laughing, everybody, and everybody's screaming. And that kind of paralyzed the athlete mentally. And then from that point forward, please don't hit the ball to me. Like any place else, I'll cheer, I'll yell, but don't hit it to me. And so the first answer to your question is you must allow your child up and through that age of 14 to be having fun, some measure of joy when they're participating in that event. If they look at it as a drudgery, or if they get in the car and they're very sullen and quiet, okay, are you taking them there and they feel responsible to go because you're driving them there? Or are they actively saying, you know, Dad, I can't wait to get to the ballpark. I can't wait we're playing Paul's team today. We're playing Baxter's team today. You know, something along those lines. There might be trouble on Alley 1. So the first area that needs to be addressed, and the question you need to ask as a parent is my student athlete, are they having fun? Are they really excited about going to the game or the practice? Are they looking forward to going with their friends or their coaches? Because that's really the foundational piece that is required before anything else get built, before skill set development gets built, any of that stuff. I've seen numerous student athletes have tremendous success at the high school and college level that were slow of foot at younger ages. They were small in stature. It was the fact that they always had that I have to get better drive. I have to get bigger drive. And then when we became older, you know, they had that foundation of you know, joy and passion for a sport.
Love it. So basically falling in love with the game. I was talking to a dad earlier, Walter, and talking about these two boys in that situation. I said, the first thing that I recommend, because I experienced this with my boys, is he needs to learn to compete for him. You know, I recommended in the evening turning off the phones and playing a game of checkers with both boys every night. See who can beat dad at checkers, and explain to them the wrong moves that they're making, those type of things. I recommended him multiple sports, just going out and having fun. So if we classified 8 to 12 of really focusing on these athletes of falling in love with the game, now I want to ask you another question. Let's just say 8 to 12, we're putting all of our focus, fall in love with the game, competing for you, not for dad. Don't worry about who gets the ring on Sunday that costs $2. Literally, it costs $2. I didn't know that. I mean, those rings, you know what I'm talking about, those big championship rings.
Oh, yeah.
The reason I know they was $2, I had to buy some one time. And I'm like, I was expecting $30 or $40. And I'm like, really? We're spending thousands of dollars to chase a $2 ring. Yes, but now, if I ask you this question, I said, okay, Walter, you're the best I know in this business. And I'm asking you as a dad now, not as a co-host. 8 to 12, you're stressing, fall in love with the game. If I asked you 13 to 15, Walter, what does it mean to build the athlete now? So my son fell in love with the game. Thank you for that advice. He's competing for him. He don't look at me if he strikes out in the stands. He goes under that dugout. He picks up the bats, even if they're not his. He's picking up the trash after the game. He can't wait for Saturday morning to go compete for what he can do, to lay it all on the line for himself, to sleep good at night, whether he went 0 for 4 or not, or 4 for 4. He's loving every minute of it. That has been accomplished thanks to your guidance. Now he's ages 13 through 15. And I've got to ask you a question, Walter. How do I build the athlete?
The biggest understanding or epiphany that many parents do not get until it's too late is the awareness of how the body matures. Meaning, I will always say to parents, you're worried about what they're eating and those types of things. But I always try to get them to understand the foundation of their adulthood. If I just put sports away for 1 second, and I say to parents, okay, at 13 to 15, your children begin a process of understanding what they like, what they don't like, who they don't like. They begin to formulate who they are striving to become, what is appealing to them. Where do I want to, what destination am I wanting to go into? Meaning, am I an athlete? Do I want to pursue becoming an athlete? And so it becomes incumbent upon parents to say to them at that point, it's important for them to become aware, socially and individually aware of who they are, meaning Mother Nature is about to kick in. That acne stage where, you're going to start to see different things begin to change, the maturation, begin to see hair under the arm, those types of things. All of a sudden, your son or daughter begins to become very aware of their maturation process. And so at that point, you have to get them to understand a routine. It's no different than I'll say to a parent, give me your morning routine as a family. Well, we wake up at 6:30. I have breakfast at 6:50. They wash, take a shower, brush their teeth, come down, have breakfast, out the door, 7:15, 7:30, catch the bus. Okay, what about dinner? Well, we're scattered here and there. I said, okay. Now, if you begin to say to a student athlete, okay, from now on, I want to make sure you're having X number of meals and you're preparing your body, whether it's body weight exercises. Now, when I begin to talk like this, parents will say, okay, I heard that lifting weights stunts growth. And that's factually incorrect. It's all about how you approach these things, meaning if you know that strength is going to become an integral piece of being a high school and potentially college student athlete, at what point do you want to do that? Because you have no problem taking your student athletes for lessons, pitching lessons, fielding lessons, hitting lessons, things of that nature. You have no problem with speed coaches or mobility coaches. But parents forget the key component to being an athlete at the high school level is that physicality piece and that foot speed and that agility piece. So now if you have an athlete that has passion and they really want to take it to that next level, it's about doing things that their peer group is not, meaning it's going to require some measure of, I guess we'll use the word sacrifice. I don't like to use that as a parent. You have to make a decision. If it's important to them, it probably should be important to you. And my oldest son, it wasn't a priority. My youngest son wouldn't make a move unless he knew, okay, I'm lifting every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Those are my days that I'm lifting. I'm sprinting 2 days a week. I'm making sure that I have 4 meals every day with 3 snack meals in between. And that was just how he was wired. And so what he began to understand is preparation is a true testament to who you can become as an athlete. Meaning, let's say your student athlete is 5'2", but mom and dad, mom's 5'7", dad's 6'3". Chances are that we know that there's going to be a growth spurt. Some people that occurs at 14 to 16, some at 16 to 18. But if we've taught our athletes how to condition their bodies, mean prepare, hydration, sleep, it can't stress this enough. Hydration and sleep are almost free in today's world, meaning access to water, access to sleep. The strength piece can be as simple as body weight, things of that nature. But I always like to get creative, meaning how many of us as parents, Jeremy, I know I used to do this in the Stone Ages. Every month I would take a pencil and I would have my children back up to the wall in the kitchen and I'd draw the line on their head and put the date. And, when we're looking every day, it doesn't translate. But after a year, you begin to look at that line was here, and now that line is here. And so do that same approach, whether it's a journal or something else. Well, we could only do 10 push-ups. Okay, that's a start. You have to start somewhere, but don't measure or quantify based on just numbers. Do it based on, do you see the physical changes? And the other thing I used to do with both my boys is we took monthly photos, same place every single month. Now, won't sound like much after a year, but from the age of 12 until they graduated high school, there was a photo with a date. 12/1/2004, all the way up to 12/1/2014. And I got to tell you, when you start to see the skinny, skinny face and the skinny, skinny body start to go like this, and then when they're freshmen and sophomores, and your student athlete has a 3 to 4 year head start on their peer group that are currently freshmen and sophomores, and you look at them, and then you look at the juniors and seniors, and you say, okay, they kind of look like those guys. That is what you're ultimately seeking. So as a parent, that is really the key that will open, the golden door that you want for your student athlete to get through.
Awesome advice, Walter. Basically, you're saying introduce them to strength training, build nutritional habits. That's very critical. Develop discipline. And this is where the body starts separating, not just skills. And then also, this is the age where your potential either grows or stalls. It's up to you, depending on those habits you've created in the discipline day to day. Walter, we're going to take a quick break, and then I want to ask you 2 more questions. I'm going to ask you about how to prepare for reality. And then I'm going to talk about something that I've learned a lot from you just listening to you over the years about stop chasing exposure. So we'll take a quick break. We got 2 more questions for Walter. Athletes, electrolytes matter, but you got to choose the right electrolytes. If you look at the sugars, 34 grams, the dyes, all the things that's not good for you in this product, this is a hype product. If you look here at the electrolytes made by Beede, it's got the right amount of magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, kosher salt. It's got vitamin C to help with the immune system. I'm telling you, if you want to stay on the field, you want to perform at your best, you want to recover well, this is the product that you need to choose to fuel your body as an athlete. Okay, Walter, back from the break. I'm excited for these last 2 parts because I work with a lot of those athletes from ages 8 to 12. And then I emphasize what I've learned a lot from you, which is teaching them just to fall in love with the game. And then we talked about how to build the athlete. Now I want to talk to you about prepare for reality. Ages 16 to 18, I've heard you say this multiple times, maybe not these exact words, but this is the way it translated to me. College doesn't care what you used to be. It cares what you are now. So that'll be kind of a lead line into what you want to explain to these parents about preparing for reality.
Well, I think parents need to understand college coaches, contrary to popular belief, do not worry about what you've done at the ages of 12 through 17. They really do not concern themselves with statistics or metrics. So really, those are not relevant when it comes to recruiting. And I'm talking about anything that's happened in the past. One of the best things, and I call this the transitional piece to every single student athlete that we work with, and that is when your athletes are freshmen and sophomores in high school, you must take them to college games. Don't care about the level. Do not care about the division. I don't care if it's NCAA, NAIA, JUCO, Division I, Division II. Don't care. Go to a college practice or game and allow your student athletes to visually see what's in front of them. Like, wow, look at the size, look at the skill, look at the speed. Allow them to process that. That's number one. Number two, the reality is every college coach is really concerned. Like, you might be a 2026, 2027 high school graduate. College coaches are trying to determine the 26 graduate, what is he going to look like February of 27? The 27 graduate, what are they going to look like in the spring of 28? And so you have to have a pathway that has shown progression. You have to have that calling card of you're always moving the needle forward. Nobody is comparing you to any other athlete, meaning every college has different needs. Some college coaches prefer left-hand hitters. Some college coaches prefer all elite athletes, very fast twitch, shortstops, center fielders, extremely athletic, explosive athletes. Every coach has a different recruiting philosophy. And so what you must identify from a fit perspective is not so much where you're looking to go, but who's looking for your student athlete. And that is a must have. So many parents and student athletes are consumed with where they want to go, as opposed to who's looking for my skill sets, who's looking for what I am capable of bringing to a program. And when we start talking about recruiting, every athlete will say, well, I'm looking to go to Division I. Okay, well, let's just talk about numbers. And you start to get parents to understand realistic numbers. And so what you're trying to do is not shine your shiny objects so coaches will be wowed by how good your statistics look or how your video look. You can have the best video editor in the world, but at the end of the day, when they come to watch your student athlete, they're looking at things like posture, composure, enthusiasm, meaning from a team perspective, body language, interaction with coaches, interaction with umpires, things that talk louder than statistics or metrics. And that is because college coaches know there's failure in your student athlete's future. How do they handle it? How do they rebound from that? If they're pushed to their limits, do they fall down and stay down, or do they dust themselves up and get back up? So once you've entered that threshold of 17 to 19, that junior and senior year, that's where you have to put that big boy approach into your day-to-day routine, meaning, okay, yesterday I was 0 for 4. That day's gone. I have to put that in the rear view mirror, and now I need to focus on today. And I don't need to think about, I was 0 for 4, so therefore today I have to be 2 for 4 to get back to 250. No, that doesn't matter. Statistics are what they're going to be at the end of a season. What you have to do is take an approach to be the best version of yourself today. And so when you're out in the recruiting world, start with, okay, who's talking to me? How can I get coaches to start talking to me? What do I do well that may fit these types of programs? And the other most critical component to this, gone are the days where your windows of exposure are at a showcase or at a camp or at a tournament. Those days have come and they have gone. Now it's more about, okay, what are you doing with your social media? How are you managing your social media? Who's managing your social media? Because now those profiles, a lot of kids see guys lurking, and they'll say, oh, this coach just ghosted me. He was talking to me and now he doesn't talk to me. What did you do? Did you say something on social media? Did you put a video out? You have to be keenly aware of when you're posting on social media. Are you using the words I, me, my, or are you using the words we, us, our? Because coaches are paying attention to that social media. And 9 times out of 10, without even realizing it, Jeremy, athletes are putting themselves in a negative light. And sometimes the coaches won't move beyond that.
Absolutely agree, Walter, because they have a culture, that they're trying to create in that team. And you and I both know, you get a little bit of cancer, that's gonna keep you from winning a lot of ball games. So I'm gonna ask you another question here to wrap it up. I have a lot of parents that call me, and I know you do as well, that they almost kind of blame it on their son is not getting no attention. Like, I hear the words exposure. My son Jeremy, he hit 350. He didn't make an error, all these things, and he just needs more exposure. I need somebody to help market him. And I've heard you say once before, actually several times, exposure doesn't create opportunity, it reveals your readiness. And so let's talk about here, wrapping this podcast up, stop chasing exposure. So if you told me, and I called you for consulting, and I said, son, here's my son, Pearson. We're trying to get him more exposure. And you gave me the word, stop chasing exposure. How would you continue to relay that message for I really understood it?
The biggest thing is exposure leads to being exposed. The number one thing that I would say the vast majority of parents are using the words development and exposure way too early in their process. You don't need to even bring those words up until the rising senior summer or going into the senior fall. And at that point, you should be at the point from a maturation and a skill set perspective where if you're ready, okay, let's start to put you out in front of schools. Now, college coaches are not really going to those events and trying to identify. They're trying to go to those events to fill in. And so what you need to be able to understand is college coaches have slowed their processes down almost to a snail's pace. It is not and no longer will be about eighth grade, ninth grade, sophomores, and even juniors. Juniors might be getting identified, but they're not. And I'm talking about the masses,
right?
Not the exception.
Not the elite 1%ers.
Right. Juniors are not being actively recruited. And so if I'm a parent, one of the things that I really want to do is I want to spend a lot of time in that 14 to 16-year-old window, making sure we're heading in the direction that we want to go in. Is there wind in our sails? Are we out in the middle of nowhere? And where are we trying to go from here? Because once you get into that sophomore year, you can't catch up. We hear all about reclassification and post-grad and all this other stuff. You can't do that to catch up. You can do that if you've been working and you're trending and you're moving in the direction that you want to go in. But it's very, very hard with regard to going to camps or showcases. Now, the old way of the world, the business people, they want you to respond and they want to make you feel like you're missing out, like you become so overwhelmed. Well, I got to go to that event because all these coaches are going to be there. Okay, are those the coaches that you think are going to want to see your student athlete? Because if they're not, what's the sense in going there? And oh, by the way, has somebody said to you, those schools, your student athlete can definitely play at those schools. And so going to an event for the sake of just being told, here's the thing, when you have all this noise, voices and choices, when you have all this noise in your ear saying, oh, you don't want to miss out. Oh, you're going to miss out if you don't go to this event. You really should go to that event because it used to be if it used to be, or it might be, or it could be, doesn't mean it will be. And what you need to understand as parents is your video, your student athlete must have X number. For instance, if they're not running a sub-7 or let's say a 7.2 and below, chances are they're not going to have the foot speed. If they're not throwing a baseball in excess, and I'm talking about across the diamond, let's don't care about whether they're outfielders, infielders, pitchers, even catchers. If they're not throwing a baseball across the diamond at 85 miles or above, they shouldn't be going to a showcase. If they're not hitting baseballs, and when I say hitting baseballs, not talking about power, I'm talking about if they're not driving baseballs, meaning line drive after loud contact. And you know what loud contact is when somebody turns their head, when a coach says, wow, that boy, he has good ball strike skills. Loud, consistent line drive contact. And if that's happening, I promise you, balls are going to leave the yard. So parents need to understand this process is about definitive skill sets that are identifiable at the ages of 17 and 18 that lead to projectability at 19 to 24. Because if they're not present at 17 or 18, and you're worried about tournaments and showcases and college camps, it's not going to work. The student athletes at every level of college baseball, and I live in a part of the country where we have elite Division II, Division I, and Division III at the NCAA level. We have great JUCO level, not to the level of Texas or Florida or California, but we have strong JUCOs in this area. And when I go to watch games, I will tell a parent, I'll take a video and say, what level do you think this game is? And they'll say, oh, that's Division I. Actually, that's Division III. That's Salve Regina. Wow. And then I'll go to Division II. What level do you think this is? Oh, that's definitely Division I. No, that's Southern New Hampshire, and they're in Division II. So my point is exposure or exposed. And when you run across that, parents are just frustrated beyond belief. But at the end of the day, You need somebody like, I don't like telling parents what they don't want to hear, but I do believe that both you and I really truly believe they need to hear the truth, as opposed to, more fluff and more smoke.
Amazing podcast, The Process with Walter Beede, how to raise a student athlete. Walter, I think we covered all the basics here that any parent can take and listen to over and over. How to fall in love with the game, how to build the athlete, how to prepare for reality, and stop chasing exposure. I love how you put it. It's pretty simple. Do you want exposure? Okay. Well, maybe he's not ready for exposure. Maybe he's going to be exposed to being written off a list that thinks he can't make it to the next level. I love how you talk about projectability. Is your son getting better year after year, or is he staying about the same? So the process is something I love to do with you, Walter Beede, a wealth of knowledge, experience, not only with working with athletes all over the country, but raising two athletes. Take us home here. We've wrapped it up. We talked about falling in love with the game, building the athlete, preparing for reality, stop chasing exposure, wrap it up in a couple of sentences, and give these parents some take home from this podcast today.
I will tell you the number one gift that you can give to your student athlete is take them to a college game at extremely young ages. Let them fall in love with the athletes. Let them have idols. Let them really see what it looks like that's in front of them. That's the best gift you can give to your student athlete.
And I'll even take it a step further, Walter. I told a dad the other day, take them to a competitive high school game and let these boys bump knuckles after a game. But 100% agree with you. They can't really see that pro level, right? They can't see, but taking them to a good high school game, a good college game, and continuing to do that. Walter Beede, thank you as always. Thank you guys for joining us on The Process. As Walter always remind you, send in a message to us, give us some feedback, some questions that you want us to address on the next episode, The Process.
Thank you, Jeremy.